Here we go. I'm thinking that it is already live. Okay. Hello, everybody, in my wonderful Fiercely Aligned Women group, and then eventually on YouTube when this video gets uploaded there. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Olga Gertz, if you haven't met me before, and I am here now with Julie Demers. Am I pronouncing your name right?
Yes.
Okay. And we are going to be talking about pelvic floor, which is so freaking important for women. And it's whether or not you have had kids, you can have pelvic floor issues, but especially for mamas and especially for women who have had kids, kind of got used to their symptoms and are kind of just accepted it as a part of life. It's not really something that you need to tolerate. It's something that you can absolutely fix. It's something that you can absolutely help and transform your life and not have to worry about, oh, that's my son. Not have to worry about peeing when you sneeze, not have to worry about peeing when you're jumping on a trampoline with your kids. It is totally something that is fixable. The problem is that a lot of us, we don't like to talk in society in general. We don't like to talk about things that are below the belt, right? Like it's something that we keep private. We don't really elaborate on our pelvic floor issues. And it's something that pelvic floor physios, I'm just so glad that the woman that I was taking courses for, when I was pregnant with my first son, she's repeated over and over, if you are still having pelvic floor issues at 6 to 10 to 12 weeks postpartum, oh wow, my husband decided to use his chainsaw. So if you still have those symptoms, you should not wait. You should go and see a pelvic floor physio. And I'm so glad she told me that, because I was like, what is a pelvic floor physio? And so from there, my kind of appreciation for this started. And with my twins, I absolutely had issues and I had pain, and I was like, okay, I need to go see someone. And I'm just glad I knew that this was an option. So let's start with you, Julie. Let's talk about how you got started even doing this, thinking about this, being interested in the pelvic floor, and how you got to doing what you do now.
What a great introduction, Olga. I think you brought everything together. Well, my story is kind of similar to yours, and I think that most women, they hear about their pelvic floor for the first time when they're pregnant or after they got their babies. And that's my story too. So I was a physical therapist already when I had my daughter 12 years ago already. And I had a friend who did pelvic floor physical therapy, but I was like, in all the things you can do in physical therapy, why do you choose the pelvic floor? I didn't understand. Because usually when we start doing physical therapy is either because we're in sports or,
Yes.
that what attracts us is not women's health, to start with. But I got my daughter and I started having leaks and I had pain, and I discovered later that I had prolapse, but I didn't know. I was playing ultimate frisbee, so running and jumping, and I was really eager to go back to my sport when I had my daughter, because I stopped because it's a bit physical. So I stopped at one point in my pregnancy because I didn't want to get hit. But I went back and I had to wear a pad and it wasn't fun. So I searched by myself because I didn't want to see if my friend and I started doing Kegels, but it didn't work. And then there was this specialty given at university, and I decided that I didn't want to go see a pelvic floor physio. I wanted to train myself because I was like, well, there's no way I'm the only one living with this. So I'll go learn about it and treat women that have this problem. So that's really how it started. And then I discovered that I had prolapse and that I was doing Kegels wrong. So I was bearing down, I was pushing on my organs and on my pelvic floor instead of lifting everything up. So even though I was a professional and I should know and feel my body, I wasn't really feeling it. And I wasn't doing the right movement. And I discovered later that 1 out of 3 women will do the opposite movement. So that's a lot. That's a lot. So if you're alone by yourself and you read about Kegels or you go check a YouTube video about Kegels, you might not even be doing the right thing for your body. And this brings us why we talk together is really being able to listen to our body and listen to the messages it's sending us. Because, when you have a baby, what happens is, this gets stretched, there's pain. So, our brain just disconnects a little bit with this part of our body. And then we have all those problems. So we just manage because we have all those things to take care of. So we put a pad and we continue our day, and we do the best we can. But in the end, we need to reconnect with this part of our body to take care of it. So I had 3 babies. Doing physical therapy really helped me after my first 2. But after my third, physical therapy wasn't helping me. And I was kind of frustrated because I was like, I won't be the physical therapist, the pelvic floor physio that is leaking. That didn't make sense to me. So I went more in the holistic path because I was like, well, there's more to it. And I was working with pelvic pain clients and working with a team, psychologists, OTs. And so I knew there was more to it, but I was like, what can I do for my own body to help it? So I train as a yoga therapist, and I also train in low pressure fitness to really reconnect more with my body. And, with this, I got results really quickly, and better results than I had after my first 2, because I was really able to reconnect and really recreate the harmony in my body that was supposed to happen. So the pelvic floor is supposed to work with the rest of our muscles. And the difference with me and other physical therapists is really that I don't focus only on the pelvic floor. I focus on how your body communicates together, how it works together, because it's a system. So the pelvic floor is kind of at the center, so everything needs to work together. And it's often the victim. So we are often pointing fingers at our pelvic floor, thinking that it's too weak. But oftentimes we're putting a lot of pressure on it. And then in the end, our pelvic floor is trying to hold everything up, but it can't, because we're adding more and more pressure to it and trying to make it lift more and more pressure. And it simply cannot. So we're putting ourselves to fail because we're trying to make it work more while we should be helping and relieving that pressure so it can move better. So that's how I change the way I work. I really work in reconnecting with your body and being aligned, so that you can remove the pressure first, and then you can activate your pelvic floor if it needs to. But often what happens is that when you relieve that pressure, your pelvic floor is already strong and it just needs to reconnect with the rest of your body, and it will work. So you don't even have to do Kegels or exercises. So it's kind of magic, but it's really, so it helps. It has really ripple effects, because once you reconnect, then you feel better in your body, your body better. So
Wow,
it has all kinds of different effects.
that's so beautiful. So what you're saying is a lot of the time people think that the problem is their pelvic floor, when really it could be the muscles around it, above it, near it, and we can control or we can heal that. And then we don't really have to focus so much on the pelvic floor. Whereas traditional pelvic floor physios will always focus on the pelvic floor itself and exercises for the pelvic floor itself. Is that right?
Well, there's different kinds of, there's car experts that will look at the whole thing, and others that will focus. I cannot put everybody, but the way that we are trained first is really to look at the pelvic floor. I went outside of the box and there are pelvic floor physios that do that. But the first thing that I do with my clients is make them breathe. So it's hard for pelvic floor physios to start and do like, okay, let's do breathing exercise, because, a lot of women will like, well, I'm coming to you because I have leaks, why are you making me breathe? So it's harder sometimes to focus on somewhere else, or to even have the knowledge to go elsewhere to help. But yes, you were talking about the muscles, but it's also your organs. everything is pressing down, or even your upper body. So oftentimes our upper body is not that strong, if especially in those years, we are leaning forward a lot, or we are sitting in our couches, and our upper body is not as strong, so it doesn't hold itself as much. So the weight of our upper body goes onto our abdomen and then on our pelvic floor. So when we can strengthen a little bit more our upper body, it relieves this weight from our pelvic floor, and then our pelvic floor can move better. So you can imagine, as if it was my thumb and I had the pressure on my thumb, it would be much harder. I could put a lot of pressure and be hard to lift my thumb. But if I relieve that pressure, then it's easy, to lift my thumb. And it's not because my thumb is not working well. It's just that I have added pressure that prevents me from lifting. So that's about
a really good visual. And would you say some of it is postural?
Yes. So there's different things, the way your posture really has a big impact. A side note, yesterday I went to see my doctor for my annual exam, and she measures me because at my age we start shrinking, I guess. And I grew because what I've been doing in the past few years, so my low pressure fitness, I've been doing this for a bit more than 2 years, and I grew a quarter of an inch, and I've never been that tall, in my life. So she was really amazed, and she was like looking at her notes and then looking at my head, looking at my feet as if I was standing, and she was like, wondering what was happening. So I told her what I was doing, and what happens is that when you do low pressure fitness and that you hold your upper body, is that you create space. You just lift your muscles, work lifting yourself up, and this helps your pelvic floor, and it helps your posture. And other things that why people do low pressure fitness is also to have a lower waistline, because if you create space, then you will have a lower waistline. So it has like really multiple effects on your body, but it will also help you breathe. A lot of athletes that do sports, they have better capacity cardio because they breathe better if they do low pressure fitness. So, it has a lot of effects. But your posture does have an effect. The way you breathe. So if you're stressed, if your muscles, your respiratory muscles are not working as efficiently because of stress, because of your posture, for multiple reasons, it will add pressure also to your pelvic floor. So there's different little things that we do every day that can have an impact on our pelvic floor, and that prevents it from doing its job. And it's not because it's not strong enough, it's that there's things adding up on it.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. I love your resilience and your putting a stake in the ground for you to be like, no, I will not be the pelvic floor physio that has pelvic floor issues that are unresolved. And you know what? That is amazing because, your experience and your story will light the way for other women to be like, yeah, why do I have to suffer through this? Why am I martyring myself? Why am I not looking deeply into an issue that, like we just talked before getting on live today, like, if we have a cold, if we have something, if we have an activity with our kid, the last thing we need as mothers is to have an extra worry at the back of our mind that is constantly there and is constantly kind of with us. It's like, oh, I'm going to have to wear a pad when I go on the trampoline with my kid, or, oh, like I have a cold and now on top of sneezing and having a runny nose and coughing, I also have to worry that I'm going to pee my pants every time I sneeze. Like, these are just things that we don't need to constantly carry. And so if we can lessen the burdens and lessen those little voices at the back of our heads that are these things that are completely solvable, but we're just not making the time to solve them, then like our burden gets lightened, right? And so just the same thing as decluttering, right? Decluttering our home will lessen our burden, will give us more time. Decluttering our mind of these things that are constantly there, of like health issues or mental health issues that we are not working at resolving, like they are cluttering our mind. They're making our bodies heavier, and they're making our posture heavier, right? And they're affecting our entire life. And so if we can lessen that burden on ourselves, that will just help us as women to just move forward in life lighter, happier, not having to have, and like, it's sad because we just adjust. Like, women are so adaptable. human beings are, but women, I feel like even more so, right? Because we have these massive life changes, like having kids is like the biggest life change you could possibly think of. And so we just get really good at ignoring issues that we have. We don't whine about them. I almost feel like my husband whines more about every time he's sick than I do, because I'm just like, just suck it up and keep going. And he's kind of like, wah, I need a nap. And I'm like, really? Like, we have 3 kids. Anyways, I just think we're just way too good at bearing the stuff, but we don't understand the long-term implications of not resolving these issues. And so if you're listening and you have leaks, or you just have like little leaks every time you jump or something, like, this is still resolvable, and there are things that you could do. And thank you for actually giving the definition of low pressure fitness, because there's somebody else that I follow, like an influencer in the wellness space, that I was kind of like, what is her secret? Because she was talking about, she didn't talk about it in the way that you did, but she was talking about growing. She's like, actually growing is a sign of anti-aging, because as we age, we tend to get shorter. And she's like, I actually have been growing because of what I do. And I'm like, wow, what is this? And so you just actually explained that you have the same thing. And so this is actually an anti-aging thing, to have this holistic conversation with your body. And I'm just, yeah, mind blown. Lots of aha moments. And I hope for each and every one of you. And if you have any questions, please post it in the Facebook comment chat, and then I will have a look and we can answer some of them.
If I can add something, because there's so many women. The question that I have often is also, I've been living with this for so long, can I still do something about it? And yes, it's never too late to work on muscles, and it's never too late to work on your posture, to work on how you breathe. So yes, even if I have a client who started with my program, and she has been living with leaks for 20 years, and she had a lot of leaks. It was really intense. So I wasn't even sure if with my program, not being one-on-one with her, I would be able to help her. But she saw results in 2 weeks. And I must say that all the women see results in 2 weeks. And the reason for that, because it seems, when I started saying that, I was like, it seems like too good to be true. And am I like doing an infomercial or something? But there's a reason for that. It's because we work on habits first. We work on reconnecting with our body first. So once we become aware of the little things that we do, they're easy to change. It's not like giving up sugar. That is really hard. It's really things that you do, how you sit on the toilet, when you go to the toilet. There's habits that we have since we have been potty trained, and we just don't know that we have them. So once we know, then we can adjust and make those little changes. And one of my clients said, I will never be unaware again. She said, now that I know, I will never unknow. And this is amazing. She had done physical therapy before, but she was only doing the exercise without really knowing why. And once you know why, then you can really reconnect and empower yourself to what you're doing. So, even though after a while you don't do the exercises or you don't connect, life happens sometimes and you stop doing the little routine things that helped you, you can always come back to your body and say, oh yeah, I've been ignoring this, so I can go back to taking care of it. So I think this is a great tool to have, because it stays with you for life, and it's never too late to learn those things. You can always have an impact on it. So even though when we're new moms, that's when we hear about it. Some women start taking care of it when their kids have kids. They're
finally like, I have time for me when I'm like, in my middle age or later.
Yes. And it's not too late. They still see results that change their life.
And this is my mom. Like, she still, when she starts laughing, she crosses her legs, and she's like, I have to cross my legs when I laugh. And I'm like, oh, so we just accept this as like something, when you have kids, you just have pelvic floor issues. But it's like, no, don't accept it. And Julie's here to tell you that you don't have to accept it.
No, yes. And let's talk about it, so women know that they can have solutions to do this, because we all have an image of our aunts or our mother or grandmother that have been crossing their legs, and And once we start noticing, because it's my job, I notice more, so when I go to a party and we laugh, I see those women, that are struggling. Yeah, so we definitely need to share that there's something to do.
If only you could put a PowerPoint presentation as soon as that happens in a in a family party. Okay, guys, I see too many of you crossing your legs. We're having a PowerPoint situation right now.
The thing is, it's so taboo. So some women will be really happy to talk about it, and others are like, and they will come and talk to me about it later, Or my colleagues, when I was working in a hospital, they were like, Julie's doing pelvic floor physios, and the taboos were all coming up. And then later, I have this question. So it was just always funny to see the reaction. And this happens with doctors too. Doctors have their taboos too. So that's why sometimes they will not talk to you about the solutions because they don't feel comfortable talking about it. My own doctor was like that. She said, oh, women don't want to go see physical therapists. And so she was suggesting little weights that you can put into your vagina to really strengthen. But let me tell you, this is, if you're not connecting with your body, the weights won't do anything. And if you have too much pressure, the weights will fall off. If your pelvic floor is working too hard, you're just going to make it work harder. So the weights will work for a really small percentage of women. I have been using them a long time ago for really athletes when they needed really, really strong pelvic floors. But, to say the least, most women don't need this. They really need to reconnect. And that's when you see the quickest results and the results that last. And, it makes sense because our body is a system. And this, I've been listening to you this week talking about, knowing more about the herbs and knowing, how everything works together and, just as a whole. So we need to talk about this.
Yeah, let's talk about the holistic part, and I think we as women in general, we have to work every day to eliminate, dismiss, get rid of the shame around everything, about talking about sexuality, about talking about our pelvic floor, about talking about, just all the things that we've been shamed around over time, our bodies, just everything, just in general, the shame around our bodies, it has been so strong. And to feel like there's some shame about talking about it, let's get that out of our current generational reality and not pass that on to our children. And let's just, and shame around this is for everyone, both men and women. And, I'm so saddened by the fact that my grandfather, I feel like he passed away way earlier than he had to because no one caught his prostate cancer because he never talked about the fact that he, had to pee very often. He had pain down there. He would sit on the edge of the seat, but nobody really thought about it. It's not something that he brought up as an issue until we went in and found out he had stage 4 cancer. And we were like, oh, now it all makes sense, right? But it's not something he would voice out loud because, that generation especially, we don't talk about that. And so, yeah, it's just important. If you just think about it from that perspective, let's not ignore pelvic floor people. We get our pap tests, we do all these things for a reason. And so let's think about the holistic health and how the pelvic floor is a part of your whole body. Let's not ignore it. Let's bring love into it, and let's coordinate all the pieces and actually allow it to be a part of our holistic health. And Julie can help you do that. She's got an amazing Facebook group where she offers support. And okay, before we talk about how people can work with you and how they can find you, I want to know what's one thing, one piece of advice or the first piece of advice you give to women in terms of becoming aware of how their pelvic floor is connected to the rest of their body, and just to start to create that embodiment for themselves and just start to feel it. What do you suggest?
So yes, the first step is definitely to become aware. A lot of women think that their first step is to start doing exercise, and we really definitely need to start being aware. And as I said, the first thing I teach is really breathing, because our pelvic floor is really connected with our diaphragm, which is our respiratory muscle, our main respiratory muscle. So our diaphragm is at the top of our abdomen and our pelvic floor is at the bottom, and they move together. So when we breathe in, our diaphragm goes down and our pelvic floor goes down, and when we breathe out, our diaphragm goes up and our pelvic floor goes back up. So a good way to start connecting with your pelvic floor is really through your breath. So if you take belly breath, which there are many types of breath, the belly breath, a lot of people think that the belly breath is the best breath, and there's so many of them that, you know, it's not the only breath. But I just needed to put this out there. So when you do your because when you do only belly breath, it puts a lot of pressure on your pelvic floor. So it's important to use your other muscles to breathe. So it could be another conversation. but if you take a belly breath, then you should feel your pelvic floor go down, and then when you breathe up, you breathe out, you should feel your pelvic floor go back up. And then you can do a contraction if you want. If you have been doing Kegels and you know you're doing them well, you could do a contraction while you breathe out. And I do big movements with my hands, but it's really small movements. It's really tiny muscles. So you wouldn't feel it really well. You could put your hand there to feel the movement, or sometimes if you're seated on a chair, it's the easiest way to feel it. If you really have your sit bones on the chair, then you can feel your pelvic floor touching the chair and lifting up and then going back down. So that's the easiest way to reconnect, at least. And then, you know, we can go from there. So I think this is one of the first steps, at least, to get our brain talking to our pelvic floor again, because oftentimes we just stop listening. You know, we just ignore this part of our body, and we're not sure what's happening down there. And it's important that if we want to recreate the connection and regain control down there, it's important that our brain is aware of what's happening down there.
I had so many chills. And when me and Julie had a conversation together recently, we realized we actually teach, like, from different perspectives, we actually teach the same thing, which is this whole holistic and listening, with this deep inner listening that seems to have been forgotten as essential. You know, not only listening to your intuition, but listening to your body, listening to the signals from your body, and just truly being connected on a deep level. And this takes time. This takes doing little things, little habit changes every day, you know, and there's so many different ways to connect with yourself. And one of the major ones is through movement and breath. And we kind of teach similar things, but in different ways. And yeah, we want to work more together in the future to perhaps do something really amazing on this topic, but more on that later. So why don't you tell people how they can work with you? You know, what are the ways that they can work with you, and about your group, and yeah, how they can get more support from you.
Well, I guess if you resonate with what I teach today, what we talked today is I've made a free training that talks really about the 4 steps to take to really reconnect with your pelvic floor and have lasting results. Because what happens when you do Kegels, it's often that you're stuck doing them for the rest of your life if they work, and sometimes they just don't. So I could write in the comments, and maybe in the show notes, the link to the training, and I also have a Facebook group where I go live once in a while. I used to go live every week, but I don't anymore. But there's like almost 100 videos on there, so if you need help searching on different things that you have, I can help you figure out where to find this information. But yes, my objective is really to get to help women find solutions to this problem, because when they do find the solution, it changes lives. It changes lives. That's why I do this, because I see the light coming back, and because oftentimes, well, when women wait too long, it really takes a toll on whatever they do. You know, if they do sports, they sometimes stop, or they do have to wear the pads, or, you know, has an impact on relationships sometimes, on your intimacy. So it really does have impact on so many things, and it's every day. It's every day. You never get a break from this.
Mhm.
So taking care of it sooner than later really makes a difference. And, you know, when you want to work more with me, I have a program, which I talked about a little bit. So in the first 2 weeks, we really work on adjusting and making those little habits change, that gives results quickly. And then we really work on the low pressure fitness, on yoga therapy, to really make sure that we have lasting results, so we can live without those symptoms in the long run. So that's really
Yes.
what I do.
Absolutely. And yeah, we're going to put all of the links for you in the comments of the video. So don't worry, you'll get all of them. You can work with Julie in all of these different ways. You can get her freebie. Super fun. And yeah, I'm just so glad that, first of all, this profession exists, but also that you exist. And I know that for myself, like, it was a huge impact on my well-being, my mental health, and my sexual health. And yeah, like, after I had my twins, I had major pain during intercourse at a time where, you know, they're like, okay, 6 weeks later, or like even 12 weeks later, like, you should be fine. If you have pain down there, you know, that's not normal. And so I was like, oh crap, like, I definitely have pain down there. And it's crazy because I didn't even get any tears with my twins, like with my vaginal birth with my twins, which was really wild because it was a really intense birth with, you know, my second baby coming out the wrong way, feet first. The right way for her, but feet first. And so it was a really wild experience, and there was some trauma in there. And so my pelvic floor physio definitely helped me release some of that. And honestly, in one appointment, it went away. I really was thinking that I needed to see her at least like a few times, but she literally held space for me to release that trauma with her physical presence, the breathing, and the holding space for whatever trauma, physical or emotional, happened during that time. It literally just in 3 breaths released whatever it was that was giving me sharp, intense pain and didn't let me like enjoy intercourse in any way. And I was like, thank goodness. Like, you know, otherwise I would have suffered through this for many more months, probably maybe even years. And so I just don't wait. And if you don't, you know, even if your problem is not acute, like the one I had, but if it's something that just is that little voice at the back of your head, like, I really think it does over time create more burdens in our lives. And so the more of those we could release, the more we will feel liberated, the more we will feel free. And, you know, this whole group, all I talk about is liberation basically every freaking day. So if you haven't gotten the point of that yet, these are the ways of liberating yourself of these things that are these annoying things that pile up. And together they make it harder to live our truly aligned life. So yeah. So thank you, Julie. I'm so grateful for you and for your beautiful teachings here today. And yeah, if you have any last words, go for it. That's your chance.
Well, I guess my last words would be, it's never too late.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, never too
That's
late.
what came.
Okay, sending you so much love. Mwah, everybody, everyone in my group, and Julie. And I'm going to stop the live stream. Okay, that was awesome!